Olá, eu sou a Tânia Sarmento, editora da Quinta Essência, e hoje vou conversar com uma convidada muito especial e uma das nossas autoras do coração. Gong é autora de livros de fantasia recheados de emoção e com personagens muito marcantes. Ela escreveu Esses Prazeres Violentos, Os Nossos Fins Violentos e agora acaba de chegar às livrarias portuguesas o seu novo livro, Desejos Imortais. Vamos falar com a Chloe sobre o que a move a escrever, do que trata este seu novo livro e muito mais.
Hello.
Hello, Chloe. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm really excited to speak with you about Immortal Longings, because we've just published it. It just arrived to the
Yes.
Portuguese publishing stores. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited. I saw people posting on Instagram yesterday saying it was releasing, and I was so excited.
Yeah, so we're really excited. I just love your book. It's really good. Once you start reading it, it's like you cannot stop it. You need to know what happens next to Carla and to Anton and to all of them. I'm not gonna spoil. I'm not gonna tell them much, but it's really like full of intrigue and right and, like strong characters. I really loved it. But
Thank
first of
you.
all, before we start our conversation about Immortal Longings, I would like to congratulate you because you're being nominated for the Goodreads Choice Award with your last book, right?
Yeah.
Foul Heart
Yes, thank
Huntsman.
you. Yes, yes,
Please,
yes.
all readers, go there and vote, okay?
For Heart Huntsman.
Yes. So now about Immortal Longings.
Mhm.
So Immortal Longings is your first novel for adults. It's like a
Yes.
different audience. Can you tell us
Mhm.
what readers can expect from this book?
Mhm. I feel like with Immortal Longings, you can expect a lot more adult themes, if that makes sense. Because when I was writing the Secret Shanghai series, which I think everyone, probably knows me from those books if they're already familiar with my work, those sorts of stories are very much about coming of age. It's about finding your place in this world that you don't really feel fitted to anymore because you are changing as a person and you're growing up versus Immortal Longings, all of these characters, they're already grown up. They've grown up, they're a full adult, and they've realized, wow, the world actually kind of sucks. Like
Oh,
they've been around for a long time. So I think the tone is very different to these Violent Delights, to Our Violent Ends. It does seem a bit more pessimistic about everything else, but that also gives me the room to do a lot more that I wouldn't be exploring in coming of age narratives. In Immortal Longings, there's a lot more bloodshed for the sake of it. There's a lot of like tension between Kella and Anton. There's a lot more power struggle between the three of them, Kella, Anton, and August. So I think it just gives me the room to take everything to the very extreme. I have a lot more fun when I do get to just do whatever fits the story most.
mm-hmm. And do you think it's also because you, as an author, you
Mm.
also grown up, right? Now you're in
Yes.
your early 20s,
Mm.
like Kala, for example, right? So
Mhm.
maybe even if this is a completely different world that we're
Mm.
living in, some of
Mhm.
the worries or some of the feelings are the same, right?
For sure, for sure. I think I only had the idea to write Immortal Longings because I was becoming an adult. I wrote all the young adult books when I was essentially a teenager. I got the idea for these Valentines when I was 18. I wrote it when I was 19. And then I started writing Immortal Longings when I was graduating college. I was 21. I was just looking at the world and thinking there are some stories that you can tell here that an 18-year-old would not be interested in, but a 25-year-old would.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
now about these Violent Delights was inspired by Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. But
Yes.
now Immortal Longings is inspired by Anthony and Cleopatra, right? In what
Yes. Yes.
way?
That's right.
Because you told already in some interviews that it's not the story itself, it's more like the
Mhm.
characters, right? Can you please explain us
Yes.
a little bit about it?
Yes. Absolutely. I really love Antony and Cleopatra, Shakespeare's play. And the thing I love the most about it is Antony and Cleopatra's toxic romance. They're so terrible for each other, and it is so entertaining. The play quite literally does a cold open into Antony asking, like, oh, well, it's Cleopatra asking Antony, how much do you love me? Antony goes, I love you this much. And Cleopatra's like, that's not enough. And then he's like, no, but I love you this much. And she's like, try again. That's not enough. I just love that dynamic so much. And it is a very adult dynamic. It's throughout tour, I've been describing Immortal Longings as the world's most obsessive situationship, which is a very new term in like modern dating. And I think it gives people an idea of the kind of characters Calla and Anton are. It's not that sort of sweet teenage love that Romeo and Juliet kind of holds that I then adapted into, my young adult books. Romeo and Juliet is so much about how the adults in your life have let you down. So these two teenagers would rather die to be with each other than to be apart. Cleopatra and Antony are full grown adults. They're middle aged in the play. Everything that happens to them is their own choice. They choose to be at odds, they choose power over each other. And that sort of character focus is exactly what I wanted to adapt for this trilogy, rather than, the battles and the history and all that. There is reference to that, but I was most interested in the character dynamic.
And what did inspire you to write? I know it's Shakespeare, but also it's not easy to write about a toxic relationship, right? A toxic love.
Yeah.
How did you do it? What did you get? Like, what kind of problems did you want to talk about?
That is a great question. I think it is something that I wanted to do to kind of stretch out my creative muscles, if that makes sense. Because
Yeah, of
for
course.
a long time, I had been writing young adult. And when I do write young adult, I want to write something that you can cheer for. I want to write something that ultimately makes you sit with the book and think, oh, I hope at the end the characters end up together, right? You have that positivity for them. I think when it comes to writing two characters that are toxic, the push and pull is the most fun part. There is a huge amount of it where you're sitting there thinking, I don't want them to end up together. I don't even want them to make it out alive. And that is the thing about a tragedy. The catharsis and the movement through it is the entertainment. It's not about what are we going to end up on, it's how do we enjoy the journey while we're on it. And that can be tough, I think. It is very hard to root for something like that. And you do want to root for what you're reading for. So it's about skating that line between, not pushing the readers away, but still making them just toxic enough that you are entertained by them continuously.
Yeah, of course. And they have like hard backgrounds. They're fighting for good reasons, both of them, right? So there are these for sometimes you want them to win, sometimes it's just like
Yeah,
no.
yeah. They're very at odds, you know that they can't ever agree on something. If one person gets what they want, the other one has lost out, and vice versa.
So one of the things I really enjoyed is that Calla, Princess Calla, the protagonist of the book, for those who didn't read it yet, she killed her parents when she was young.
Yes.
That's why she's like ostracized from the kingdom. Now she's
Criminal.
after her uncle, the king.
Yes.
But she falls in love with Anton while she needs to win this mortal game.
Yes.
She's got really hard choices to make, like impossible choices.
Yeah.
I'm suffering for her, like, my God. How do you feel about it? How did you make it happen,
Yeah. Oh, great question. So with Calla's goals, a lot of it is my exploration into the fantasy genre. I think one of the quintessential archetypes of fantasy is we need to overthrow the bad king. And then for so long and with so many stories, the solution is let's just bring in the new good king. And every time I read these books, I'm thinking, when in human history have we ever replaced a bad king with a good king? We have always just kept bringing in monarchs who suck. Like, it's very hard for royalty to be morally good in the way that fantasy stories like to imagine, because they are always on the throne of either imperialism or colonialism or some sort of like taking advantage of the land that they've taken in, right? Um, and these ideas have always fascinated me because I wonder what it is about human nature that makes us seek this in a fantasy book. And I wanted to kind of explore how you would slowly realize that over time. Book one is not very clear that, oh, August is going to be just like the king that Kala is trying to get rid of. You know, Kala's whole goal is if I get rid of my uncle, I'll bring in August, my cousin, who's going to be good for the kingdom. He's going to be a great ruler. For as mostly until the end of book one, Kala is very much trying to delude herself, even though Anton is telling her August is not who you think he is. So some characters have realized that the cycle does not work. Kala wants to believe it. And the fun thing about having a trilogy, like there's 3 books for me to go through, you slowly take these characters through these realizations. And as much as this book is, you know, concerned, she has to fully believe it in order for her decision to be hard. She's choosing either this, you know, great ambition to improve the kingdom versus what she wants. And in the end, maybe it doesn't matter that much. Maybe everything she thinks she's doing good for the kingdom is completely irrelevant. Another monarchy isn't going to change anything about their society.
Oh God, that's a very pessimist idea, right? Not because monarchy or republic or a
Mm-hmm.
president, you know, it's what we're living in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to be with Kala and think that there will be someone good, like someone amazing,
Exactly.
that it can
Mm-hmm.
change the world.
Mm.
But in this book, we don't trust August that much, that's for
We
sure.
don't. He has some goals of his own that he wants done.
Yeah. So another thing is, you know, you were talking about the magic, like the fantasy part of your novels. In Immortal
Mhm.
Longings, people can take over other bodies, right?
Yes.
Can
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit more about this magic world that you
Mhm.
created and where did you get inspired for it?
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. The magic system and Immortal Longings kind of came together with a lot of moving parts. Initially, how I had been thinking about it was kind of related to the previous question, where you're thinking about monarchy, you're thinking about power. And there is a plot twist that happens in the book where some things aren't what you think it is. And I actually started with that. That was the concept of the book. I was thinking, what if, without spoilers, what if you could kind of come into power accidentally? And would you remain good in intention if you originally had some sort of different background? Or would you be corrupted? And because this is an Antony and Cleopatra retelling, I think anyone who knows their Shakespeare knows that my thesis statement over the 3 books is power will corrupt you. So I needed the setup for that. And I was just thinking it would be so interesting in a world where you could actually take over people's identities in some way. And I had just been watching a show called Altered Carbon on Netflix. It's a science fiction show where you can download your consciousness into a chip and you can just change bodies because you are not your body, you are that little chip. But I was thinking, you know, I'm writing a fantasy, I'm not writing a science fiction. It's going to have those feelings, but it's not going to be computer chips. And I started thinking about this concept in Chinese philosophy, and it's called your qi. It's essentially like your soul. It is as much a part of you as your body is, because that is what you are made up of. And I thought, what if that was the concept in this world? And what if you could move it around? And when people jump between bodies and their qi moves, there's like a little beam of light that shows where you've gone. And I thought that was a great mechanism for indicating that something has happened, but maybe you won't know if they're otherwise like undercover in someone else's body. Their eye color does change with them. That's the one signifier in this world, except when strange things are happening with the main characters. Uh, so it was really kind of a mixture between these sci-fi elements of body, of human nature, of soul, versus a very old philosophical concept that I've borrowed from Chinese culture.
And it's really interesting, that connection between soul and body. And for example, for Kala, she has the power to switch bodies, but she doesn't use it. She wants to
Yes.
stay in her own body.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting that.
Yeah, I really wanted to make a distinction. Like Kella really believes she is her body, and that's why she never wants to jump. Versus Anton believes, he's his soul, he's his chi. No matter what body he's in, he's still himself.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, returning to Shakespeare, do you remember how was your first contact with the writer? And can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Oh yeah. I first encountered Shakespeare in high school. So the first Shakespeare play I ever read probably was The Midsummer Night's Dream in year 9, which is I was 14 maybe, first year of high school. New Zealand curriculum will always do one Shakespeare play every year in
Oh,
English
wow.
class. Yeah. So I studied definitely 5 plays throughout my time in high school. It was my year 11 teacher, Mr. Randall, who really built a love for Shakespeare in me. He was just very good at not only teaching Shakespeare, but making you understand what Shakespeare is saying and how these plays and the themes aren't just rooted in like Elizabethan England. They're very timeless. They apply to us today. They will continue applying to us in the future. So long as humanity, has human nature, it will be relevant. So I really decided that, oh, Shakespeare is kind of cool around that time, like in year 11. And then when I went to college, I took a Shakespeare class with Professor Racken, who is this like famous Shakespearean scholar. And she was so fantastic at, I guess, bringing magic to Shakespeare, but also she was like intense. Like she knew her stuff. So I was scared of her, which made me really study hard to impress her.
And now, can you tell us a little bit more about the next books of this trilogy?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So Immortal
If you have
Longings.
planned for them with no spoilers. I know it's hard,
No
but
spoilers. Well, I just recently finished the second book, so now I can actually talk about that. Prior to this, every time someone is like, "Can you tease the second book?" I'm like, I don't know what happens in it, but now I do. Um, there are 2 more books to come, and the second one, which is coming soon in English next year, uh, is a lot more political. It starts, entering the palace and their mind games. The battle royale in the city is over. Now it's the battle royale of the minds inside the palace. Um, there are new characters who have come in, since the end of the first book. Some characters come back into the narrative. It kind of creates a love triangle of sorts with Kala, Anton, and the person who wakes up at the end of book 1. But the love triangle is for power. It's not even for love. Love is a side effect. Power is what they really, really want. And it has been so much fun writing that second book, and I'm really excited to get into conclusion of the third book.
thank you. And can you tell us, I'm curious, how is your writing process? How do you do to write so much? And that's really interesting. Do you have a process? Do you have like some rituals you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I write a lot because I only write. I don't have any other hobbies. So I have been trying to log off earlier and be like, I need to be a human being, not just an author. My rituals is that I have to go to a coffee shop to write. When I first graduated college and moved to New York, I would write in my apartment. And I started realizing that I was blending my work life with my personal life too much. If I was writing at home all the time, I was always writing. And I started realizing I can't do that or else I'm going to stop sleeping. Because I'm like, oh, well, my computer's here anyway. Like I may as well just continue on with the story. But sleep is very important.
It is.
Yeah. So now, I'll wake up early, I'll go to a coffee shop, I'll get my little coffee and I'll start writing. I normally tend to like write into the afternoon and then I'll come back here like into my apartment and write a little. But otherwise I try to like log off by 5 p.m. because I'm like, you know what? I want to be like a real human being. And I think that's healthy as far as keeping like the brain juices going is
And
concerned.
you can write in the coffee shop, like with all the noises and all the
Oh
people
yeah.
around.
I love noise. I'm a huge I love using New York as my white noise machine. I'll eavesdrop on conversations. I'll just stare off into the distance and people watch for a long time, but I'm really good at multitasking. I'm either like listening to people's conversations and writing or I'm blasting music with lyrics in my ears and writing. So it doesn't bother me.
That's amazing. And now I have a little surprise for you. You
Ooh.
know, you have like loyal fans in Portugal who loves your books, who are really excited for Immortal Longings, and some of your biggest fans wanted to stop by and say hello. Okay?
Oh my God, is it the besties?
It's the besties, my colleagues Marta, Magda, and Beatriz that
I miss them.
you've met in Portugal. They're really excited about Immortal Longings. They are so excited. And they wanted to stop by and they would like to make some questions. Is that okay for you?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
I'm so excited. Hi.
So, how are you?
It's been so long. I miss you.
I know. Yeah. So, I think we have questions as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do.
I'm excited.
Do you guys want to start?
Sure, Marta?
Start. Okay, so you know how it goes with us. We have those probably more chaotic questions for you.
I love chaotic questions.
Right, it's the vibe. So the first one is Immortal Longing is of course inspired by Anthony and Cleopatra, and of course you use that to create your characters. However, do you feel that eventually they get a personality of their own, or for example, do you feel that you recognize specific parts of yourself or people that you know in them?
Oh, great question. They definitely start developing like personalities of their own because when I put the Shakespearean counterparts in, it is always that core. You know, I'll take what I feel is the most important thing about Antony and Cleopatra, then I make Anton and Calla. And as they adapt to either the cities around them or their world or the kinds of conflict that they have to encounter, they do start becoming their own people. Although I will say, I think I put much less of myself in these characters than I do in my young adult characters. Like, I feel like, you know, Rosalind, Orion, they get a lot of me, but Kella and Anton, I'm like, you guys are kind of evil sometimes. So I'm gonna lean into that.
I do not relate.
Yeah.
I mean, human
Okay,
beings
so
are complicated and we all do
yeah.
good and bad things.
Yeah, human
So-
beings
We're all
are
evil
morally
sometimes.
great. Exactly.
So my question for you is, if you had to choose to be a character of Immortal Longings for 24 hours,
Mhm.
who would it be and why?
I want to be Mau Mau. I think he's living the high life. I think everyone who's human in Immortal Longings has a high chance of dying, especially if you're in the games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to be Calla's cat Mau Mau. Oh, someone made him for me on my Canada tour.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
Right? It's so cute. It's just sitting
That
there.
is like, wow. That's wow.
Right?
Skill. Like that's a proper
Yeah.
skill to have. Like
Yeah. So Mama is guaranteed to survive all 3 books. I don't guarantee anyone else's
Thank
survival,
God.
but I guarantee the cat.
Wow, I like that. I
Yeah.
really like that. No, I'm so so don't get too attached.
Exactly.
And my question is basically like with the other books, you're writing about places that existed. And so you had to do like loads of research, obviously, but it was Shanghai, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What's the difference and like the biggest challenge in writing about like places that don't exist that you just created all up in your pretty mind?
Oh, great question. It is both easier and harder because when you are, writing something from scratch, it means you can do anything. You're not really confined to history and to details in the way that writing about 1920s and 1930s Shanghai was. Like, I couldn't just make up a place for them to go to whenever convenient, because it needs that sense of historical atmosphere, in Shanghai. But when it comes to writing like San R and Talon, this is complete make-believe inspired by a certain time, a certain period, and I can still adjust it however I want. But that is also the difficult part, because if I can adjust it however, I don't have constraints, I don't have rules, and it is very easy when you write fantasy like that to write yourself into a plot hole. Because if you make up one rule in like chapter 2 and forget about it in like chapter 28 and then say something else, it can open like little holes to consider that in the grand scheme of things, you decide, actually, I need to lay down some rules from the very beginning so that we're not just adding things as we go and it feels like a, make-believe world. It still has to feel real. So I did like that because it wasn't historical. I can make things up. I can decide how it is laid out. But it actually is a lot harder than just doing research, because then I'm my own, god.
Did you like create a map?
I did.
Like,
I actually have my map right here.
I mean, I'm assuming you have to in order to. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so you can actually remember everything, and then
yeah. Because if I don't have a map, I start like forgetting what places I've already mentioned. And I think I made it a lot harder for myself because this kingdom has like 28 provinces. Like, most fantasy books should have 5 at most. And I said, I'm going to have 28.
We love challenges.
Yeah, we love it.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so news about the next book. I'm just so excited about that one. I really want to read it as soon as possible.
I was just saying before too, prior to last week, every time someone was saying, oh, I can't wait to find out what happens in the next book, I would be like, yeah, me too, because I hadn't finished it yet. But I just finished it last week, so it's real now.
Okay, that's good news. That's
now
really
you
good
know
news.
what happened.
Exactly. So once we go through like maybe one round of edits with the US house, maybe it'll get sent your way soon too.
Fingers crossed.
By the way, we did have one last question. And this one, it's because we're totally evil human beings. Yes. So you're ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
So if you had to choose which characters from This Violent Life and which characters from Immortal Longings will get along the best and the worst, who would they be and why? Like 2 characters from each book to be best friends forever, and 2 characters to hate each other's guts.
Oh, that's such a good question. Because you know what? I had a lot of like meta consideration when it came to Juliet and Kel's personalities, because there is, I was very inspired by this idea of comparing Romeo and Juliet to Antony and Cleopatra. I was very, very fascinated by this thought that these are essentially the same characters at different stages in their lives. They're both star-crossed, but because Romeo and Juliet are so youthful, they are a result of the society. And because Antony and Cleopatra are that much older, they are in control of themselves. So when I was writing Immortal Longings, a lot of Kel's voice, I was genuinely thinking, what would Juliet sound like if she were in her mid-20s, but she had never like either been given love as she was growing up or was in very different brutal circumstances. So I think Juliet and Calla would get along in the same way that, like, if you ever met a clone of yourself, you would be like, I recognize you, but that's also very dangerous because, it means that they could kill each other. Yeah. So they would be frenemies, I think. Like, it depends on the situation, whether they would get along or not.
I mean, when you said, when you see a clone of yourself, the only thing that went to my mind was the Spider-Man meme.
Yes, exactly. It's like, it would be that. And it's also like, I think you out of everyone would know what your other self is capable of. And Julia and Calla are both very suspicious people. So yeah, there's that. I feel like Roma and Anton wouldn't get along because Anton is very he's like flirty, he's like brash, and Roma would stare at him and be like, you know,
Too much.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I can't wait to read the next one. Honestly, I loved it so much.
Oh, thanks. I'm excited for you to read it.
Yeah, I'll let you know once,
Okay.
well, in
Yes.
the future. Right, it was so good to see you again.
Oh,
You have to come back to Lisbon.
I do in the future. Soon.
You know, you have your tourist guides here.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
All right.
So, girls, I want to thank all of you for being here. And Chloe, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing
course.
and for telling us more about these Immortal Longings and all your other books. And please go, everyone, and read it. It's really good. I couldn't stop it reading, and everyone is really excited. And good luck for the Goodreads Books Awards. I hope you
Thank
win.
you.
Okay.
Oh yeah, look.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. It was so fun talking to you. So fun to see you all again.
It was great to see you again as well.
Okay.
Bye bye, Chloe. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye, Chloe.